At the moment, it's really easy to just be focused on one thing, and that is where we are with the pandemic and coronavirus. And I wonder how much that actually is dominating your thoughts at the moment.
Well, it affects a lot of things. For one thing, for example, it affects the future of mental health over the next year or two. We don't yet know the full effect on mental health of this pandemic because we won't know that until sometime after the vaccines have been rolled out. But we do know that something like 41% of Brits say that over the last few months they have felt at some point depressed, hopeless, or uncertain about the future because of the pandemic. And a large part of that has to do with isolation, of course. But there are some positives to emerge in all of that. For example, psychologists now are starting to focus in on the mental health potential of technologies like virtual reality, which of course is most often associated with playing games. But it offers a way of transporting patients from one reality to another, and that allows them time out from a threatening situation to think about how they might react. Holograms will be used in much the same way in the next couple of years. We know that holograms have been used to provide concerts with artists alive and dead. They've been used for many things, but a holographic image can be built from the ground up to simulate the behaviour and appearance of either a problem person or a stressing situation. Again, very helpful development for mental health.
Yeah. I wonder, when you look at the spectrum of things that are coming our way, especially technology, whether actually the coronavirus has slowed some progress down.
Yeah, I think that's true of some aspects in some sectors, but there are other sectors where it's actually sped up. For example, in areas, predictably, of biotech. There's one particular sphere, bioinformatics, that some of your audience will be familiar with. This is a technology that combines mathematics, computer science, biology, and statistics to study complex biological data. It's already being used in pharmaceutical companies to help provide new vaccines, new drugs, new therapies, very important to us right now, but it will also be helpful in time in developing things like meat-free sources of protein. And that could be really helpful for countries that can't feed their populations or where there are real concerns about the carbon emissions from the farming of meat. There's also technologies in the environment that have gone ahead a lot this year, Phil. Green hydrogen is one, which uses electricity to produce, to extract hydrogen from water and use it as an energy source. And this can clean up industrial processes that are heavily reliant on carbon fuels where nothing else can. So Saudi Arabia is already building a futuristic city called NEOM, N-E-O-M, in the desert by the Red Sea. And it will be powered almost completely by green hydrogen. And Germany, the biggest investor in all of this in Europe, is putting more money into green hydrogen now in the midst of COVID-19 than any other emerging fuel source. So for the environment, that's a good thing.
That is amazing. I mean, I want to then talk to you about electric cars and things like that, because I guess there's, are we suffering a potential future of Betamax versus VHS with, you're going to get a battery car or a hydrogen car?
Well, I think the future is always about VHS versus beta, and there's always people at different stages of the transition. But I do think that one thing we will have to watch out for in the midst of all of the change is the ethics thereof and having the important ethical debates that will arise. It's not so much just the tech, it's about who controls it, how it is used. These are debates we're not having. So we're all talking about the sexiness of electric cars. By the way, hardly anybody yet is talking much about where the electricity comes from. And there are great possibilities ahead for that, but also, again, some debates about the ethics of that generation. So I think there are important ethical debates to go along with the technical change. But, you think about the apps that we use now on the market. There's very little peer-reviewed data to show whether these apps are effective. I'm talking about things like health-related apps, for example. So there's not a lot of data yet on whether they're really effective. And we're also going to see growing debates about the way biotech in big tech uses or misuses our data. So big tech is investing more and more in biotechnology in the hope that it can harvest data. And we need to be having that debate too about consent and transparency and so on.
So actually education, I wonder if that is this sort of the future for us, a lot more home learning, that actually we can do some of these things more remotely?
Yeah, I think blended education, the point you made a moment ago about things happening that were going to happen anyway, and that's true in terms of education. Although COVID has made it a more truncated, more concentrated change, blended education will become more of a permanent fixture in schools and universities. So children will learn in the classroom and they'll learn via digital in this blended, mixed way. Of course, we don't want to rob children or young adults of the social acclimation possibilities of the classroom, because learning to work in social groups is an important part of the teaching process. But we will need to see an acceptance of blended education. We'll also need to understand the mental health implications of some of that. And I think a lot of schools now are starting to talk more about mental health skills being taught to children, anxiety management, problem-solving techniques. This is something that's done a lot in Singapore's primary schools. But we need to start doing it at an early age, and also because of transition, which will be a result of automation in the workplace. People will not just change jobs several times in their lifetime, they'll change entire careers because of the growth of automation.
Mal, fascinating talking to you. Again, I could spend hours and hours picking through everything I could. Futurist social commentator Mal Fletcher. If you want to follow him, then just follow him on Twitter, frankly. You'll learn an awful lot. @Mal Fletcher.